Thank you all, man. This is a real treat. Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna have a little talk about the same subject as where stories came from, where songs came from.
And maybe you'll play some while we're talking.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Because I'm really
a few more songs. I'll tell you to kind of kick this off. You know, I spent a lot of my younger years chasing about all over the country, in Europe, everywhere, hitchhiking, you know, sleeping under bridges and looking to find the well where songs came from. You know, I always thought they were out there somewhere, like maybe where in Oklahoma where Woody Guthrie lived, or you know, in Hibbing, Minnesota where Bob Dylan lived, or in New York City or something. And Tom T. Hall, I ran into him in Nashville, and he told me, great songwriter, he told me, he said, you know, some people can go around the world and not see anything. Some people can walk around the block and see the whole world. And so that really saved me a lot of toil and trouble.
Yeah, but you tried to get out of Lubbock a lot. You moved there when you were in the late 50s.
Yeah.
And about 10 years after that, you decided it was probably time to get going. What kept bringing you back over and over? You went to California, you went to New York, you went in search of Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
And yet you kept coming back time after time, even though you and Butch and Jimmy Dale and all of you kept saying there's a loneliness and an emptiness to Lubbock that you needed to fill up or escape. So why keep coming back?
But see, that's just it. We were always running from there, away from that loneliness and emptiness. But we'd go other places and they'd be like full. You know what I mean? And there was something about being in Lubbock that made you want to pick up a guitar and fill up that emptiness. You know, you couldn't fill it up with dirt. You couldn't fill it up with buildings or anything, but you could. But a good song, you know, take Roy Orbison for example. You know, I mean, Roy Orbison could fill up any space with just a beautiful melody. You know, like Only the Lonely, or you know, and Waylon Jennings, yeah, and Buddy Holly. I mean, so that's what brought us coming back.
Yeah.
Was that we needed to fill up that. Somebody had to be there to fill that space up, and so you know, a song. Once you have a song, you can not only fill it up there, you can take it on the road and you know go other
Was there a
places.
song? Was there a place? Was there a moment when you realized that the escaping would eventually stop and you would eventually stay?
Well, no. It's not that simple.
No, I don't expect it to be. No, I'm not saying that it is.
Well, there was a place when guys like Tom T. Hall would tell me that it's not out there.
Right.
It's in here.
But I mean, for instance, when you and Jimmy Dale and Butch all moved in together into the Flatlanders house, is that a moment when you realized that you have found kindred spirits, that you were going to be there, and you were going to be writing about this place and telling these stories with these people for the rest of your life?
We didn't know that at the time.
No. But you certainly come to realize
But there was a feeling like we all lived in this one house, and there was always something going on in the house. There's always somebody dropping by. Musicians would come over, and there was always something going 24 hours a day in the house. And people like Butch would wake up in the morning and sing a song that he wrote in his sleep. In fact, Butch is the only guy that ever wrote a song that I've ever run into. He wrote a song, he heard a song in his dream on a tape recorder. Some guy was playing a tape recorder in a little room and he heard this song on the tape recorder, and it was Jimmy Gilmore singing this song. And Butch woke up and he just scribbled down the first couple of verses, and then by the time he had gotten the two verses, he couldn't remember the chorus in the last verse. So he went back to sleep. And he found the guy with the tape recorder. And he asked him if he'd rewind it and play it again. And not only that, the person singing on the tape was Jimmy Gilmore, singing this song on the tape. So Butch made him rewind it, play it again. He got the chorus, he got the last verse, he woke up, wrote it down. 6 months later, Jimmy recorded the song.
Which song is it?
I'm not sure. I think it might have been this one. I don't know the whole song, but I know the first verse. Thirst is not the answer. Oceans come and go. I loved you 7 seas were. Lord, I loved you so. But she let me down so easy. One slow drop at a time. I would have killed myself, but it made no sense. Committing suicide in self-defense. When she said, You're just a wolf, you're just a wave, you're not the water, or something like that. I can't remember what that. I think that was the song.
Earlier, several people were yelling out, and many people, when they knew I was doing this tonight, asked me to ask you about the Clash.
Yes!
But I want to ask it this way. You went over to England on the set for the second album. The Clash shows up to the venue. They know every single word to every single song that you have written at that point, don't they? Don't they know a lot?
Well, we didn't get, on those first couple of records, we didn't get 0 radio play in the United States, but in England it was all over the radio. And so we come into London and you know, all of a sudden we have a huge sold out houses everywhere.
Pete Townsend was also there, wasn't he?
Pete Townsend would come every time we played this one place called the Venue Club. And when we were doing a sound check there, the manager came back and said, there's some gentlemen here to see you. And I said, oh yeah, bring them on back. And it was the scruffiest bunch of guys I'd ever seen. They introduced themselves as the Clash. And of course, being from Lubbock, I hadn't heard of them. But in England, they were like the Beatles. You know, they had the top songs on the radio. And so they were all really nice guys, and we hit it off immediately. They wanted to know about West Texas and about Buddy Holly, and they loved all the stuff that they'd ever heard about that part of the country. And so we just hit it off immediately. After the show, they took us out to all the great bars around town, and so that was kind of an odd meeting of bands from remote different places, you know, but
they had covered I Fought the Law, which is
Sonny Curtis. I mean,
Bobby Fuller. Bobby Fuller from El Paso. They loved Marty Robbins. They loved El Paso, but at the same time, Sonny Curtis actually wrote the song. He was from Lubbock.
Sonny Curtis was from Lubbock, and
did they look to you as a source? Did they say, "Here's a guy who's come from this place, who's known these people, and has recorded with some of these people"? I mean, did they look to you as someone who could tell them? Could fill in their blanks?
Yeah, because London would get everything from all over the world, but it couldn't decipher like why it came from there. It couldn't, you know, it could get like maybe a song from West Texas, but why did this song come from there and not someplace else? Because they didn't know anything about the town, about the geology, about how flat it was, you know. So once Joe Strummer called me and wanted me to bring the Clash to Texas, and he didn't want to play, although we did play Dallas and Houston. The places he named that he wanted to play was Lubbock, Big Spring, Wichita Falls, Laredo, and El Paso. I mean, that was the songs that he had heard about those, about those cities. All of those songs were highly romantic to him,
But what was it like for you to see Texas reflected back through their eyes? Because so much of what you've done and what you stand for is that romantic view of Texas.
Well, yeah, but you know, when they came to Lubbock, it scared the hell out of me.
How so?
They had never seen streets that were 4 lanes in each direction with only 3 cars the whole day. In fact, Lubbock just built a new freeway, an east-west freeway. I think there's been 17 cars on it so far. And it's like 6 lanes in each direction.
But what was it like for you to hear them discuss it? Because you and Strummer became very, very good friends.
Well, I understood it, you know, and I loved the whole London rock scene, because I kind of felt like maybe what it was like in Lubbock when Buddy Holly was, you know, starting to play rock and roll there, and he opened for Elvis Presley at the Cotton Club, and Johnny Cash was on the same bill. I mean, that would have been a hell of a show. And so, you know, I just kind of, the way the Clash were, when I finally went and saw some of their shows, I thought, this is a hell of a rock and roll band, you know, hell of a rock and roll band.
And it changed in some ways the way you performed. I mean, that
it kind of set me free, because I grew up on rock and roll. My first band was a rock and roll band in Lubbock.
The Twilights?
The Twilights, and then the Rocks Limited, and then later on the Neurotic Sheep. And Neurotic Sheep was kind of short-lived. That was the cellar in Fort Worth.
Would you like to play something?
Let's see, what could I do?
Saturday night.
I would like to hear Silver City, by the way.
Yeah, that Silver City is a good one.
Saturday night.
Oh, or Saturday night.
Yeah, Saturday night.
Let's do that.
Saturday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is from early Flatlander days.
Woo!
Just relax, Joe.
I'm going out of where the lights don't shine so bright. I'm going out of where the lights don't shine so bright. When I get back, you can treat me like a Saturday night. I'm glad to see you coming, I'm glad to see you go. She once told me now, I'm glad to see you coming, I'm glad to see you go. But how I miss you sometime, love, you might never know. Don't make me wait so long before you let me back in. Don't make me wait so long before you let me back in. Knowing she's gonna lose might give my baby the blues, but it won't ever keep my baby from trying to win. You gotta give up something if you try anything new. You gotta give up something if you try anything new. But whatever I give up, love, it won't be you. No, no. I'm going out of where the lights don't shine so bright. I'm going out of where the lights don't shine so bright. When I get back, you can treat me like a Saturday night. treat me like a Saturday night.